Welcome into the Draft Geeks podcast today, all you fantasy sickos. This episode is for you guys. We're going to be doing a 10-team Dynasty rookie-only mock draft. So you guys that have been listening to us for a while, talking about draft prospects, now it's going to translate into a Dynasty league. So without further ado, the Draft Geeks podcast starts right now.
Welcome into another episode of the Draft Geeks podcast. I'm Max Showstack over at the Draft Geek, here with Jace Campbell over at Pat's Drive. We've got one for the fantasy guys today. We're going to take our draft prospect evaluations, all of that, and turn it into a fantasy mock draft for you guys. We've got 4 rounds set up. Jace and I are going to be mock drafting against the Sleeper AI mock draft. We're going to claim 2 of 10 spots in a league, do 4 rounds. We'll cover all of Sleeper's picks, take you through our thought process for our picks, and cover 40 rookies here. So you guys are going to have a jam-packed episode, lots of fantasy evaluations, and yes, we'll be able to separate some of our evaluations and the fantasy evaluations, because let's face it, things have changed in terms of outlook after the draft. So super excited for this one. Jace, how you doing?
Yeah, doing good. And for those of you guys that have been listening for a while, we have a bit of an announcement. Me and Max are going to be doing a 12-team Dynasty League. There'll be an opportunity for 10 of you guys to join. Me and Max will be holding 2 of them. This is going to be a Dynasty League, so we'll do a whole new startup draft. And then obviously from year on out, we'll be doing rookie drafts following along. And then we can do these drafts with maybe you guys, in the community, and you guys can be on them too. So that is on the horizon. If you want to join there, you're going to head over to Max's Instagram, which is at the Draft Geek _, and he's going to be posting a story about job applications, fantasy dynasty job applications. Put in something funny, put in the best trade you ever got, the best waiver wire pickup, how many times you've won your championship, whatever it is. We want 10 of you guys to join a dynasty league with us that we will be getting set up probably a little bit later in the summer, June or July, but we can start reaching out to you guys, seeing if you're interested. But I'm really excited for this episode. I've already done 3 rookie drafts, and it's fun to do them all because every team you draft for, and it's all different. So this will be fun.
Yeah, and as Jay sets this up, we're going to be duck racing for our position. So those of you on audio only might want to switch over to YouTube. Make sure you subscribe when you get there. And Jason and I are going to be deciding which picks we have in this draft. So without further ado, if you're watching on YouTube, you get a treat as these ducks go and we decide who picks where.
So first first race is for my draft position. So whatever finishes right here is where I will be drafting. Looks like it's going to be 9. 9 gets there. I'm going to remove the winner from the race. Yes. And then race again. And now this will be for Max's.
So we got 1 at the back of the draft. It would be only fitting if I'm at the front or in the middle of the draft, give a different perspective.
5?
And I've got 5. Look at that. Wish granted.
Not bad. Not bad. So we will exit out of this, and then we will jump on over into, I got to refresh it because it's not showing you up. Is it showing me on your Sleeper app?
Yes, I see it.
I see you in. Okay, so I'll share my screen on Sleeper, and then we'll get into this. Obviously, like we hinted at, we don't have specific teams for this, right? So this is kind of hard because
are we super flexing?
Yeah, super flex.
Okay.
Yep, we'll go super flex. That seems like a typical dynasty rule, right?
For sure.
Okay. So, I mean, what's hard about this is we don't have specific teams, right? So you don't know, hey, maybe that one team's running back sucks. So depending on how your dynasty team looks, kind of take this with a grain of salt, but we'll at least get to talk about some of these players. So like we said, Sleeper AI will be doing it. You ready to start?
Let's do it, man.
Okay, we'll start. Yes, I want to start the draft. There you go. And we'll obviously pause it once it gets to Max.
Here, we can go ahead and mute that guy. That
is it muted?
Sleeper chime.
It.
There we go. So those
where's
of you guys
one sec. Where's the pause button so you don't run out?
I think it's in that slider on the top right-hand corner.
Pause draft. There you go. Just so you don't run out.
So here, we'll both cover. So Sleeper just made 4 picks. I'm on the clock at 5. Ashton Genty went number 1. I think that's par for the course. Amarian Hampton went number 2. I think that's also, in a world in fantasy football where running backs come at a premium, that's not surprising at all. Travis Hunter and Tedoroa McMillan were the next 2 picks. Both players that I think, to me, come with some caution. Travis Hunter, how are they going to use him? Tet McMillan, I was a little bit lower on him as a prospect, but he had premier draft capital, and he's going to be a premier weapon in his offense. So I think those are 4 good picks right there by Sleeper. I might not have gone with Hunter or McMillan, but curious to hear what you think there.
Yeah, I mean, Genty and Hampton going at the 101, 102 is probably the most common thing. I think there's a little bit more reservation for me at the 102 of Amari and Hampton. Not saying he's not worthy of it, but I just don't see a clear. He's going to split carries with Najee Harris for a little bit. And so, if you're drafting a dynasty team and you're in this position, you're not competing right away. That's a perfect fit. But again, if you need a receiver, I've been high on Tet McMillan for a long time. I think that him and Carolina's offense, if you have Bryce Young as your quarterback and you want to put that stack there, I think that could be really good. Travis Hunter, too. I've seen a lot of people take him at the 102. I think those 3, in my opinion, are interchangeable depending on your roster. The other thing that I find interesting right here, I've seen Cam Ward go in these first 4 very easily because
he'll go in the first 5.
You're going to take him right here. There we go. If you don't have a quarterback in a super flex dynasty format, it's the most important position. And especially to get a young guy like him, like say you have a Matthew Stafford and a Sam Darnold, like 2 older guys that are still going to be good, but you need a younger guy not to develop, but like to just have that on your roster. Cam Ward is a very good pick within the top 4, especially if you're in a super flex league. So I think 101 is obvious. If anyone goes other than 101, is Ashton Genty. Even if you need Cam Ward, you should probably trade out of the 101 because someone even at the 102 or 103 would probably give you a ton of value for Ashton Genty at the 101. But those next 4, Hampton, Hunter, McMillan, and Cam Ward, I think can kind of all be interchanged between the picks 2 to 5.
Yeah, there's too much super flex value for me not to take Cam Ward here at 5. So that's the direction I'll go. And I think it's such a luxury to have 2 quarterbacks that you're comfortable with. So if you want to go resume this guy, and then I will take Cam Ward right off the board.
There you go. So Cam Ward, Travion Henderson, Judkins, Tyler Warren, and then I'll pause it again here. Okay, so Cam Ward right there, obviously coming off the board. You get 2 back-to-back running backs, and then Tyler Warren comes off the board at the 8 spot. Now, I'll get your opinion here on here. If this is a tight end premium league, it makes a little more sense. But what do you think of Tyler Warren at the 108?
Tyler Warren at the 108, I don't mind. I almost like Loveland a little bit better just because of the quarterback situation in Indianapolis. But Tyler Warren at the 108 isn't crazy to me at all. And then I would have gone Judkins over Henderson in that spot, but that's splitting hairs. I think both of those are good options in the first round.
Yeah. I've taken Henderson too at the 106 before. Just, obviously being a Patriots fan, but too, I think that he has a clear role in the pass catching game. So does Judkins. So those 2 running backs, I just don't see like Emeka Ibuka, Matthew Golden, guys like that creeping in front of those 2. So after the big, I don't want to say the big 5, but the main 5 guys go who were 1 through 5. I think Henderson and Judkins are probably the next 2, depending on that order. 100% agree with you on Tyler Warren. Now, this is where it gets interesting for me at the 109. Depending on where your roster is, right? You have 2 really good running backs right here. RJ Harvey and Caleb Johnson. I love both of their opportunities. But again, RJ Harvey is 3 years older than Caleb Johnson. So if you're in the 109 spot and maybe you just lost in the championship, RJ Harvey might be the pick because he's going to have a huge role. But if you're looking to take Caleb Johnson at like the 201, 202, and you're one of those teams that maybe is not going to compete right away, Caleb Johnson might be the pick. I think it's interesting to look at that in that sort of way. So if I'm here at the 109, I'm assuming I just lost in the Dynasty Championship last year. I'm probably going to go RJ Harvey here. The opportunity he has with Sean Payton in that Broncos offense. And then obviously draft position. Where they took him is so important. And they took him in a very prime spot for him to be a super productive running back year 1. So I'm going to resume this and I'm going to take RJ Harvey at the 109.
Look at you getting in the mind of the draft slot. That's unbelievable analyst work by you right there, Jay. So the sleeper AI in the last pick of the first round took Caleb Johnson. So I think we're both right around okay with that. Colston Loveland back at the 201, another player that we talked about potentially being a first round pick. Emeka Ibuka goes at the 202. A little early for me. I would have taken Matthew Golden, the guy that I think is going to be able to get on the field right away and have more of an impact. Jackson Dart goes at the 203. That's a little bit more of the reason why I took Cam Ward. That's the only quarterback in this class I really see getting on the field and producing right away. Jackson Dart, if you're in a developmental, if you have the luxury to be able to play a developmental quarterback early in the draft, that's the guy. And then Cam Scatterbo at the 204, I don't think is a bad pick either.
Yeah, I don't hate the Cam Scatterbo pick because I do think there's kind of a significant drop off from Scatterbo to maybe even Bashal Tutin or some of the other running backs we'll discuss here in the third. So if you need a running back and you feel like Cam Scatterbo's the guy, one other thing I wanted to hit on, I've done this in 2 of my 3 drafts where I've been at the 105 or the 106, or like somewhere between the 105 and the 107. I actually turned the 105 into picks 201, 202, and 310, just because I felt like at that point I didn't need Cam Ward. He was actually already off the board. I turned that into who I thought were going to be 2 impact players in who I ended up taking, which was Emeka Egbuka and Caleb Johnson. And then I ended up getting an extra 3rd round pick. So I think if you're looking to trade back in dynasty drafts, somewhere between like the 105 to the 108 spot is pretty good, because I just don't see much separation or stuff between like a Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, and Tyler Warren. If you could trade back and get an extra pick or 2 from the 106 to like the 110 and still come out with Caleb Johnson and a Cam Scatterbo, I think that's very good for your team. So that was one other thing I wanted to hit on.
Look at you, You're Kevin up Costner. Moving up
seriously.
And down the draft board.
It's more just analytical money ball.
There you go.
But
does he get on base?
Say that again.
Does Jackson Dart get on base?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. But you know what he does? He freaking hits home runs. I don't know. But no, and I think that's a good point, because I've seen Jackson Dart go a ton in the 3rd round too, because people just don't like him. They're just like, he's not going to start this year. I do think he's a 2nd round guy in dynasty drafts, in super flexes, because they traded up for him in the 1st round. He's got to have a role at some point, whether it's this year or maybe possibly even next year. But he's too good to pass up in the 2nd round. So even if you have your apprehensions, if he gets to like the 208, 209, probably got to pull the trigger on him. But I'll resume this, or I'll let you talk about it. Who are you considering here at the 205?
The 205 here for me, the sleeper left a lot of the receivers on the board. I got to go in that direction, just because if you look at tight end, it's Mason Taylor. At running back, it's that, Devin Neal, Bashal Tutin tier for me. I like a Devin Neal over a Jaden Blue or a Dylan Sampson in this spot. Matthew Golden and Luther Burden are really the 2 guys I'm juggling the pick here for, and it's going to be Matthew Golden for me because of the 1st round pick invested in him and the uncertainty in that Green Bay wide receiver room with a ton of injuries and usage question marks. Other guys maybe you could consider is a Jaden Higgins next to a Nico Collins. He's in a good spot. A Trey Harris is in a decent spot where I think they're going to find a way to get him the ball. And then I like a Jack Besh, actually more than a Trey Harris, just because I think he's in a position to be fed. After that, I think there's a little drop off perhaps to Kyle Williams, who you're going to see how does he compete with the 2 rookies the Pats drafted last year that, yes, underperformed, but will have a chance to get their get back with a new regime. Matthew Golden head above the rest in this pack, so he'll be my pick at the 205. I'm really happy with the Cam Ward and Matthew Golden haul. I would have considered Golden at the back half of the 1st round.
Yeah, and I mean, again, if you're looking for maybe a more, I think Egbuka has a way to contribute right away because of the Chris Godwin injury, but maybe Matthew Golden has a better rookie season just because of the situation he's in. So if you're looking for a guy at the 110, 201, that's maybe going to be a huge impact this year, Matthew Golden could be the guy over some of those other guys. So after you go at 205 with Matthew Golden, Luther Burden at 206, Jaden Higgins at 207, Trey Harris at 208.
Look at that. Not the 3 guys I was considering. I think I know ball, Jace. I think I know ball.
I think you just know how to read the order that's on the thing. So I'm up here at the 209. Now, again, Jack Besh is the best receiver on the board, in my opinion. You could argue Kyle Williams. I think Kyle Williams has a higher ceiling than him. Is he in a better position? We'll see. The Patriots have struggled to develop wide receivers, and that's just me being honest as a Patriots fan. Like, it's just, he has all the talent, but it's been concerning. So I guess for me here, you're looking at Jack Besh, who I think is going to be a really solid receiver. I worry about that situation a little, and I worry about Pete Carroll wanting to run the ball more, especially after taking Ashton Genty. And now I look at, hey, can Bayshall Tootin do what Bucky Irvin did for Liam Cohen last year in Tampa Bay? I don't think it will be to that level, but I do think running backs might be a little bit harder to come by right now. I guess in the third round, there's a lot more running backs.
I mean, no, I think it's tough. I kind of agree with you. I'm looking full transparency. I took quarterback, receiver. I'm looking at running backs, and
yeah,
it's kind of slim pickings out there. So, like you talked about with Liam Cohen, he's got no tie to ETN or Bigsby. He picked 2 running backs. They took Bayshall Tune and LaQuinn Allen. So
yeah,
tells you a little bit of something.
I guess the Jack Besh one for me is just a little. I love Ashton Genty in Vegas. I don't love Jack Besh in Vegas. I think he's going to be a very good receiver, but I just worry about what his ceiling will be in that type of offense. So
is it just Doug Baldwin? Like, is that
it could be
right?
It could be.
Yeah.
So although I already took RJ Harvey, I'm gonna take Bayshall Tootin. I think in Liam Cohen's offense, he has an opportunity to be a big time playmaker for them in both the run and the pass catching game. We know about the speed, so that would be my things there. Jack Besh at the 210, Jalen Milroe at the 301, Mason Taylor at the 302, Jaden Blue at the 303, and Shadur Sanders at the 304. You're back on the clock.
Yeah, so Jack Besh going on at 210 is no surprise there. Jalen Milroe at the 301, a very entertaining developmental quarterback pick right there. I would say only would I recommend that if you have the luxury to do so and could completely be okay with having wasted that pick. Not that I think that's what it will come to, but you have to assume the risk when you take Jalen Milroe there. I like Mason Taylor's value in the 3rd round. I think that's a guy that could break that little curse the Jets have going on. When was the last time they have a good tight end? I don't know. But Mason Taylor may be the next one. Jaden Blue's got a path to starting in Dallas, so I don't hate that in the 3rd round. And then Shadur Sanders, I would take over a Jalen Milroe just because I think the path to starting is better. But I'll just spoil it now. I like Will Howard in fantasy more than both of those guys. I'm on the clock at the 305 here. I wasn't expecting Kyle Williams to be here. I need a running back in this spot, but Kyle Williams and Jalen Knoll are both very tempting. Devin Neal's also right there. So just to give you guys a behind the scenes of my process, Kyle Williams, I already talked about as potentially being a pick at the 205. He's back here on the clock. I think that he'll be a option early on for Drake May. I think those two will mesh. CJ Stroud has had an incredible track record with slot receivers. Jalen Knoll could be next. It's been Jackson Smith and Jigba, and then it was Tank Dell. Tank Dell goes down, and now it's Jalen Knoll. I don't know who's competing with Jalen Knoll for that slot role, if anyone. So he's going to get the ball. Nick Caserio understanding what his quarterback needs and how his quarterback succeeds with that pick. I think that's tremendous value right there. And then I think Devin Neal is a very, very strong long-term play at running back behind Alvin Kamara. It's just the conundrum of like the Saints front office could be disassembled in a year and Devin Neal could not matter because there's running backs that cycle in and year out. So I think I'm just going to revert back to my draft evaluation, actually completely scratch that. I'm going to take Jalen Knoll. I think that CJ Stroud has an incredible track record of succeeding with wide receivers that play out of the slot. I don't put too much stock into them taking Jaden Higgins as well. So I think Jalen Knoll will find success out of the slot for Stroud, and it's a 3rd round pick. I think he could pick up some nice PPR value.
I 100% agree. I think that he has an opportunity, although he was drafted a little bit later than people thought. He has an opportunity with that CJ Stroud situation and the Tank Dell situation with his knee injury to be a very good not instant impact, but like we've seen what Tank Dell did when he got in with CJ Stroud, his rookie year too, like took off. And I think Jalen Knoll can be just as explosive for that offense as Tank Dell has been. So this board fell very favorable for me.
There's a pick I love that the AI made after you go through it. Let me know if you know which
it's one. Terrence Ferguson, huh?
Yeah, it is.
Because I honestly thought Kyle Williams would come off the board. So to recap, Tyler Shuck went 306, Terrence Ferguson went 307, and then Dylan Sampson went at the 308. I thought Kyle Williams was going to come off in those next three. I was looking at Terrence Ferguson. I think the landing spot with Sean McVay and his speed and how he tested at the combine is very intriguing. I was looking at there. This is kind of a no-brainer for me, one being a Patriots fan, but two, I think the value is there. Kyle Williams, I think he has the opportunity to be the number 2 receiver on that team, depending on how Stephon Diggs pans out and comes back from injury, and if he even makes it on the field off of the boat that he was just on, and
I love
whatever.
that shout out. Yeah.
So, but I think he has the opportunity with Drake May, Josh McDaniels back in there. I think he has an opportunity to be a very good impact receiver in a room that has a lot of bodies, but not a lot of people that have proven themselves yet. So my pick here will be Kyle Williams. If Kyle Williams was off the board and Terrence Ferguson were too, I would have hoped like a Dylan Sampson was. I guess my next choice would be Devin Neal, like we talked about.
Do you like Neal over Sampson? As a
probably.
prospect, I was Sampson all the way, right?
Yeah,
but
I think
Sampson goes to the same room as Judkins,
yes.
and Jerome Ford is still on the team. Like, he's going to have his role reduced, but I think if I'm Stefanski in a 1-year window, I'm playing Ford over Sampson versus Neal, I think becomes a clear 2 to Kendre Miller.
Yeah, I really do like
clear 2 to Alvin Kamara and passes Kendre Miller. Jeez.
Yeah, I think Devin Neal, and the other thing you just talked about, I don't think that Kellen Moore is going to be getting rid of Alvin Kamara, but that's a new regime there also. And so they have no ties to Kendre Miller either. So I like the landing spot a little bit more with Devin Neal and an opportunity for him with the age of Alvin Kamara and that offense. I think that there's a little bit better of a spot there. So, but I'm going to take Kyle Williams here at the 308. We'll let this run a little bit more. Elijah Arroyo at the 310, Jalen Royals at the 401, Will Howard at the 402, Harold Fannin at the 403, and Aronde Gatson at the 404. And Max, you're back up.
So I wanted to touch on one more pick real quick because I think you have to have the Tyler Shuck conversation. We can't just skip past that. So Tyler Shuck at 306 as the 5th quarterback off the board. Jace, good value or bad value?
I think it's good value because we've talked about this before. He might be the only guy other than Shedeur or Dylan Gabriel, which we still don't know about, that has a chance to start right away this year. Like Will Howard could too, which I think is why
Cam Ward, right?
Yeah, sorry, other than Cam Ward, yes. I think we like Will Howard because there's a way he could start in Pittsburgh, but Tyler Shuck is one of the most obvious starters right away. Jackson Dart probably isn't going to start right away. Milroe isn't going to start right away. You're assuming Shedeur or Gabriel are going to battle it out, so you don't know. That's a gamble there. But yeah, Shuck and Will Howard for late round values being quarterback 5 and 6 off the board, I think I would rather take them over Milroe and Shedeur too, like you just said. So I think it's good value.
Yeah, in a 1-year window, I am team Shuck and Howard as quarterbacks 2 and 3 in any order you want to put it, just because I think Milroe and Dart are 3rd string quarterbacks as they break camp. Shedeur and Gabriel could be anywhere from 3rd to 4th string quarterbacks. They have Pickett and Flacco in Cleveland. They have no reason to play a second day 2 pick and a day 3 pick. So interesting situation there, but I think Shuck 306 is great value. Throw the eval out the window because it's a 1-year window, and this regime clearly trusts him, so they're going to give him a shot. We'll cover the rest of the picks after you made the Kyle Williams pick. Elijah Arroyo at 310, I love the value. I think he could sneaky replace the DK Metcalf role as the big-bodied outside receiver, or just play that role from the slot. So Elijah Arroyo at 310, I really like that value. Good tight end class for fantasy because a lot of pass catchers. Jalen Royals in the 4th round. Get a Chiefs player anytime you can. I think that's pretty simple. Will Howard, we talked about. I like it. Harold Fannin and Aronde Gatson go back-to-back. I think Fannin's a fine dart throw in the 4th round just because he put up numbers at Bowling Green, but he's not a player that I'm a super big fan of in terms of fantasy. And then Aronde Gatson, I think the Chargers kind of took a dart throw at it. I don't know if you have to take a dart throw in fantasy at him. If at this juncture, if you still need a tight end and you're in a 4-round draft, I would maybe take Gunnar Helm here or just, chalk it up and say, I didn't get a tight end in my rookie draft and just have it be that, because I'm not sure if Gatson is worth it. God, especially with Devin Neal still on the board. I was ready to take a sleeper running back, and I don't have to. It's unbelievable right there.
You're going to take him?
Well, I'll give you a little thought process because some other guys deserve a shout out.
There you go.
But I'm going to end up taking Devin Neal. So, you can get that out of your heads. But Pat Bryant, I really like if I didn't already take 2 receivers. Pat Bryant's an easy pick. I think when Sean Payton likes a guy and takes him a round above consensus value, that tips the hand a little bit because he usually thinks he can create these types of offensive weapons. He used a 3rd-round pick on him. Similar logic to RJ Harvey. I think he really likes both of those guys. If you're to look a little bit down the board, similar applied logic to the running backs Jarquez Hunter and Woody Marks. Both were traded up for by their respective regimes. Both guys that I think will get on the field early. I tend to favor Marks because he's a great complement to Joe Mixon. Jarquez Hunter is a little redundant compared to Kyron Williams and Blake Corum. So we'll see how those guys get used. Last shout outs I wanted to give. Brashard Smith. I talked about the Chiefs. I think he can play that Jerick McKinnon role for you in that Kansas City offense. That guy could be a PPR weapon, former receiver. And I think Brashard Smith is way undervalued on draft boards. I'm much higher on him than Sleeper tends to show you guys when you talk about that ADP of 226 in a standard draft. And then Kyle Monangai. Can't not shout him out. That's my guy right there. I think the Bears came into the draft needing a running back really bad. Free agency, you thought they might go get a running back. They left with Kyle Monangai. I sneakily think they feel satisfied. But all that to take the guy that shouldn't be here, Devin Neal. The RB2 to Alvin Kamara and somebody that I think could be the RB1 in the future.
And after you take Devin Neal, Gunnar Helm goes, who you talked about. Back-to-back quarterbacks, Dylan Gabriel, Quinn Ewers. And then I'm on the clock here. I'm going to pause it real quick because we'll have some guys to talk about, obviously. My pick is easy here. I'm going to go with Pat Bryant. I think Pat Bryant in that offense as a receiver is going to be really good. I've seen him go as early as the early 4th round, 401, 402, 403. I think that when you look there, maybe he's a little similar to Cortland Sutton, but I still think he has a way to be very productive in that offense.
What if he's similar to Michael Thomas?
Then that's even better.
Yeah, right?
You're saying he's going to be an NFL record setter?
I just mean the archetype of Slant Boy was used as more of a knock on Michael Thomas, but let's face it, he was a PPR weapon, set an NFL record, and I think that's kind of the role that Pat Bryant can play because I think he's more of a nuanced receiver, cerebral type than a Devon Vele, knows how to find his way open in the middle, and now you have Cortland Sutton stretching the field as a big play guy on the outside. You can move Marvin Mims inside and let him stretch the field, be available for screens. Then you can feel less bad about using Mims as a returner because he's less of a important receiver. You can, it sucks to say, but you could afford an injury when he's playing special teams. That's a real thing that matters. Troy Franklin doesn't have to have a role right away. Continue to develop him. Pat Bryant, more NFL ready than Troy Franklin was as a prospect. Perhaps less exciting in terms of ceiling, but that's not what Sean Payton's here to do. So I love that pick, Jace.
And the other guy you hit on it, DJ Giddens. I think DJ Giddens is going to be a guy that can spell JT very well. How much does he actually get carries? We'll see. He's still a young bloomer to football. Like he started playing as a sophomore or junior in high school, kind of walked on it. Well, he did walk on at Kansas State. He's just been getting better. JT's dealt with injuries, so we'll see how that plays out. And then the other guy I wanted to shout out that you talked about it with Elijah Royal. I think Torrey Horton has an opportunity to be a starter, and we'll talk about it when we talk about UDFAs maybe a little bit. But if Torrey Horton goes undrafted, I think he should be one of the guys you're probably going after, especially if you need a receiver. They didn't really replace DK Metcalf once they traded him. So what's his role going to be? I think he can fit in next to Jackson Smith and Jigba. Obviously with Sam Darnold there too, they can spread the ball out. So I like Torrey Horton here. Or even as an undrafted guy. Like if some of these guys were off the board, I don't know if I agree with like Dylan Gabriel or Quinn Ewers getting drafted here because I just don't see
we'll talk about that in a second.
But so if some of those guys get taken off, it would kind of be a no-brainer for me. But I'm going to end up going with Pat Bryant right here because I think that's the best value on the board.
And then, oh man. Well, that gives us another thing to talk to. So right after you get taken, you take Pat Bryant, Riley Leonard goes at the 410. So a little theme from Sleeper that maybe we would advise you guys against the back half of this 4th round, where you have Gabriel go at the 4.7, Ewers at the 4.8, Leonard at the 4.10. Let's talk about it because to me, there's really one pick of those three that could potentially pay dividends, and that's the Ewers pick.
Yeah, just because of the health of Tua.
The health of Tua and the health of Ewers, we didn't really see him healthy this year, so there could be a bloom there. But I think, Gabriel's a backup quarterback that could start in a pinch. Yes, that's more of something that's, enticing to NFL teams, less so fantasy owners. He'll be the most added player in all fantasy platforms for a 2-week window if somebody gets hurt. Sure. That's not necessarily somebody you want to draft. And then Riley Leonard is a QB3. I don't really see the fantasy appeal there. If you want to taxi squad him after the draft and you're really weak at QB, go ahead. Similar to like when they had Sam Ehlinger, who was a popular player for a couple weeks when he started. But I don't see Riley Leonard getting on the field. And then, it's one thing to draft him because you think he's got to get on the field. But when you put him in the lineup, he's got to score. And I'm not sure if he's going to do that. Ewers, much quicker path to playing time with Tua there.
I mean, we don't love Anthony Richardson, so maybe they just won't draft a quarterback next year because they'll take Riley Leonard's the guy. Maybe this is still the draft at the 410.
And Gruden is running the show now in Indy from behind the scenes because he really liked Riley. Listen, Riley Leonard's the type of guy to light up an interview and be great for the locker room. And I think that's why the Colts took him. That matters at the back end of a QB room in real life. I'm not sure if that's something that you need at the back end of your QB room in fantasy football. Should we recap our teams real quick?
Yeah, let's do it.
So from the 5 slot, obviously with no trades and no preset team prior to this draft, I got Cam Ward, Matthew Golden, Jalen Knoll, and Devin Neal, a quarterback, 2 receivers, and a running back. I'm happy with that haul. I think Neal is the value play in that group.
And then for me at the 109, I went RJ Harvey, Bashaw Tootin, Kyle Williams, and Pat Bryant. And then we'll end here pretty quickly. But I mean, you talked about Brashard Smith, a couple other guys. Mm-hmm. Who else as a UDFA are you putting in? Say you're in a fab league. Who would you put in a pretty significant bid for? I just put in one for, like I mentioned, Torrey Horton. I put in a $12 fab bid for him. Now, my team won the championship last year. Not a flex. Sorry, I'm not trying to flex.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
just saying.
And so I was like, hey, I really would like to just taxi squad this guy. Like, I'll spend a good amount, taxi squad him. If he works out, I have him for next year. So I spent maybe a little bit more than what some people would, but who's a guy that you would spend a little bit more fab on if he did make it undrafted?
Yeah, I'll give you 2, and this might sound redundant if you guys listen to our other rookie style draft episode that we just did, but it's Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, the running back who only got to play 1 game of college football last year because he got screwed by the NCAA. He slots in as the RB3 for the Commanders, and I'm not super confident in the health or ability of Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler, both fine NFL caliber players. Krosky-Merritt provides some value there, so I think there's a nice path to playing time. And then I hate to sound redundant, but I think Xavier Restrepo could yield some real value for the Tennessee Titans in a weaker receiving room. He's got a connection with Cam Ward. He was undrafted, so ADPs on him are naturally low. I think you could throw some waiver money at him, and I think he's somebody that could not only play this year, but also just has the mold of a guy that sticks in the NFL for a long time if he can stick on the roster initially and prove his worth.
And one that I'll say, and this one's really interesting because I haven't done anything with him. I haven't put a fab bid in. Honestly, he doesn't really make it as a UDFA. It's Isaac Tesla. And I think I mentioned this before. Yeah, just because they traded up for him. Like, they traded up for him and they spoke about this guy like he was God. Like, they said he was the best receiver in the class. And so we'll see there. They have Jameson Williams and they have Amon-Ra on the Lions. We'll see how they use Tesla. He tested really well out of Arkansas. I'm interested there. I think that's a big swing and a miss, in my opinion. Like, I think Pat Bryant, I think other guys are kind of a little more safer than them. I think Tesla is a big swing and a miss because he got overdrafted in the actual draft significantly. But then when you look at it and say, hey, draft position matters, they traded up for him.
Yep.
And, they've spoken so highly of him. Obviously, I don't think they're going to trade up for him and say, no, we don't like him. He sucked. But all that stuff around, to me, is pointing at, hey, his usage at least might be pretty good. So that's another one I'm interested in.
You don't trade up in the 3rd round for him and not use him. That's my logic. And of course, he could get to camp and not impress them and sit on the bench for his first season and then get cut. But there's a reason the Lions invested in him, and these culture fit picks have worked for them with, Jack Campbell on the defensive side of the ball and Brian Branch all the way to Jahmyr Gibbs. That worked for them. Those were thought of as overdrafts, not the Brian Branch pick, but those first round picks once upon a time. So Tesla, same mold, thought of as an overdraft. We'll see how this one plays out.
For sure. That's going to wrap it up for us, though. So again, guys, if you guys want to join a Dynasty League with me and Max, head over, follow him on Instagram. It's at the @draftgeek_, and turn notifications on, or just be checking, because probably within the next day or two, we'll start collecting some of those applications. We'll go through them. It's not going to be like, we're not going to draft here in a week or two. Like it will be probably a month or so down the road, but we're starting this process. So if you guys want in on that, you can always go follow him. And do that, because it will be a fun league. I'm excited. Hopefully we get some competitive people. I'm in one league that's like super competitive and honestly way too active, to the point where Brock Bowers has been traded twice this offseason.
Goodness.
Exactly.
Such
He's been traded twice this offseason. And then I'm in another league where you message someone about a trade and it takes 7 years for them to reply. And then they just open it and they don't accept it. They don't reply and they don't decline it. So it just sits there and you're like, where am I at? So hopefully this is a good balance, a good active league. And hopefully if you guys are listening to this podcast, you guys would be, but it will be fun. I'm excited to start it.
Yeah, we'll get some more interactive stuff just like that. You guys can head over to my story in the next coming days, and I won't just post it, for 24 hours. I'll have that bad boy up, reposted, all that sort of stuff. Can't wait to hear from you guys, and just continue to build this out. We got summer scouting coming for you guys soon. Jason and I are doing some homework on some quarterbacks. The adrenaline rush that is Garrett Nussmeier has been very fun to watch, and that's just a preview for what is to come. So super excited for that. Thank you guys so much for listening. For Jace Campbell at the Pats Drive, I'm Max Shostak over at the Draft Geek. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will see you guys next time.